Okay, John, we are here. The fans are here. Are you ready for this amateur hour?
I'm ready to go.
We know you are. Tell everybody where you are right now. I mean, you're not the regular co-host here. Obviously, you're an NFL player. Do you know that you play in the NFL? I mean, you know that, right? Obviously,
I am aware of that.
right? You're aware of the fact that you've been playing in the NFL for a few years, and but you're also so tell let's with the amateur hour, we have a different host and different levels of chess understanding, and we're going to dive into all that in just a second. But
Hmm.
to start the show, I like the idea of we know each other, but letting the fans get to know you a little bit more. So, can you give everybody your quick kind of obviously you play in the NFL, but you're someone who's pursuing a career really completely outside of football. And that doesn't even include that if you really had your way, you'd be a professional chess player, right? So, can you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing in your life and kind of who you are?
Yeah. Let's see. I play pro football for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm a mathematician as well. I'm getting my PhD at MIT in theoretical computer science. I'm an avid chess player. Uh,
You're getting a PhD at MIT, so that's
PhD
already
from
a really
MIT. Can you
that's a
hear me
really
all
cool.
right? Can you
I can hear. I
speak up
fixed
for
the
me a little
sound.
bit?
Yeah, yeah, no, you're good now. The fans will catch up, but we're good now.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, so you're playing in the NFL. How many more years do you see your career in the NFL going? Basically, as long
Uh,
as they're willing to let you suit up, you're gonna hop on the line,
yeah, man. As long as they'll have me.
right?
Keep doing math, get my PhD, gonna go be a professor. I mean, football only lasts so long, so it's a short career, but I'm looking forward to a long career, being a math professor, playing some chess.
Right.
I mean, my goal is I'm an amateur, but I eventually want to become, a good chess player.
Right. Well, I'm an amateur too. I mean, the show is really for a couple of amateurs, and obviously, if you're just joining the amateur hour for the first time, let me give you a little bit of a premise of what we're going to do today. We pair up a lower rated amateur chess player with a professional. Currently, that professional is me. Apologies for that. But we spend some time analyzing some chess games together. We different formats. We've either watched other players play and kind of provided dual commentary in the way that you might see happen during other matches. Except the difference here is that we have a little bit of a better insight to often how the audience feels and the kind of questions that someone might ask who isn't a chess professional. Now. Today's show is going to be a little different because John and I kind of thought up this format before we went live, which is that I've actually prepared a set of positions for John to try to solve in real time. John is going to be given a series of test positions with 3 minutes per position to solve them. And while he's thinking and trying to solve it, he's going to do his best to kind of communicate, let us know the candidate moves he's thinking about, the ideas that he sees, and sort of what his assessment is of the position, so that one, not only if he gets it right, it could be instructive for the members, of course, to follow along with John's thought process, but then also when I do come back into the fold, once the 3 minutes are up, we'll analyze it together, and I'll be able to provide some information and some advice and some teachings, not just on what the actual answer is of the position, but also on John's thought process, because we were able to kind of hear it live. So I'm pretty excited about this format, John. It's not every day that actually it's pretty rare that I ever get to say that I'm trying something totally new on Chess TV, given that I do this a lot.
Good. This
But
is
I,
this is going to be fun. Also, I've got Robert Hess texting me right now
okay,
and saying that if I fail on too many of these chess problems, he's gonna like disown me.
he's going to disown. Yeah, so Robert, if those of you don't know, also a friend of ours. Of course, everybody knows Grandmaster Robert Hess, but Robert and John. John is kind of Robert's like adopted student these days, right? I mean, Robert has sort of taken you under his chess wing, and he's got a goal to make you a master. Is that fair?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, we're like best of friends, so
Okay,
he helps me
awesome.
when he feels
Well,
like.
tell Robert no giving you the answer. I didn't prepare these positions for him. I prepared them for you.
Okay, I will tell him
Okay.
always give me the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So Robert can get involved in the Chess TV chat or other places, but he's not ruining our system by giving you the answer. So anyway,
Okay.
everybody, the real fun of this show is going to be if you challenge yourself along the way. This is really turning into one of the more instructive hours of chess TV that we have every week when we have this sort of interaction between an amateur and a pro. And because this is a format that has never been done before, we get to see John's thought process, get some advice on it. So you should be using the countdown timer that John is using in the same exact way that he is. So John, are you ready?
I'm ready to go. So Danny actually already put up the first position, so I sneaked a little look at it, but put it up for
Okay.
everyone else and get the timer going.
Yeah, so we're going to start the timer right now. John will take us through his thought process. He has had a little bit of a peek, but in the future ones he won't. He'll see it in the same exact time you do. And so again, 3 minutes to solve the position. I'm going to always try to provide a little bit of background. So here everyone can see this position on the board. It is black to move, which is why you are looking at it from the black side. An interesting imbalance in the position. You have 2 knights versus 2 bishops. Currently, white is not castled. I mean, you always want to point out the obvious things you know in terms of the fundamentals of a position before you start calculating, because that might come up later on in your thought process. And obviously, there's some tension here. We've got some pawn tension as far as possible exchanges. You've got the queen operating on the same diagonal as the enemy queen, and because the first lady, the white first lady here, is undefended, that means that our black first lady over here might actually keep that in mind as tactics are developing. So those are the biggest clues I'm going to give, the context I'm going to give. I am going to say that this is a very difficult one to start. I wanted to start to show you guys that I meant business today. This is I would say, north of 1800 level puzzle. And today's amateur hour, by the way, is going to be a little bit different than the last one we did with Dave Payette. Obviously, those who followed last week know that he was a member of the triple digit club, as he so proudly claimed, the 900 rated players. And so Dave was pretty awesome, but he's holding down the triple digits. The discussion was a little different. This is going to be for, I think, more of a decent tournament players level. I'm going to put today's level show somewhere between 1400 all the way up to about expert level. So if you are in that crowd, this show is for you. And John, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start the clock, and you are on the clock as of right now. 3 minutes, and now I be quiet, and you take the fans through what you're thinking.
Okay, let's see. The queen on a4 is undefended. First thing I'm looking at is knight takes d4. Knight takes d4, queen takes d7. Knight c2 check, that's a fork. But knight c2 check. Knight c2 check, king d2. And now I got to pick up the queen. But now my knight's hanging. And that's only for a pawn. So that's no good. Let's see. What else do we have? There's the pawn on c3 is undefended. Knight e4. Does this do anything first? Knight e4. Well, I think they can just play bishop b2. Does this change anything? No, I don't think so. There's definitely tension involving the queen and the pawn structure here.
There's always tension involving the queen, buddy. Just kidding. Sorry,
Let's
random
see.
joke. Focus.
b5. No, b5 just looks like trash after cb and yeah, that's not any good. Okay. Let's look at DC followed by b5. So let's see, DC, but actually just queen takes. Now I've undoubled white's pawns, and that's nice for them. Okay. Let's look at other knight moves, because this is like the main tactical element. How much time do I have left?
You have a little bit less than a minute.
Oh Lord. Okay, I have not gone far. I've not gone far at all. Okay. knight takes d4 doesn't work, does it? Knight takes d4, queen takes d7. Knight d2. No, that doesn't. Knight c2. That doesn't work.
Well, our time is up.
E5. No.
This was a tough position, first of all. I just want to make that clear.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay. Probably if I had it to do over again, this would have been one of the 5-minute puzzles. Today's positions were kind of prepared with that time frame in mind. I didn't want to do a puzzle that, first of all, would give you 10 minutes. It just doesn't make for very good TV. I think 5 minutes is about the max level difficulty, and this might have been right there. 3 minutes, I feel like, is ideal if everybody in the chat engages themselves. Obviously, we know John will be, but I hope that people will actually use this as an opportunity to engage in the educational process. So, okay, you have to establish. First thing we do anytime we're given a puzzle, whether we want to or not, you look for the tempo moves, checks, captures, tempo moves, right?
Yeah.
So you started doing that. You were along the right lines of, all right, I got to look for something powerful.
Right.
So you considered something like knight takes d4, which is certainly the most obvious choice if it works. After queen takes d7, knight c2 checked, you correctly calculated that really regardless of where that king goes, you can't both recapture the queen and save your knight at the same time.
Right.
So just for all of you and all the fans at home, I just want to say, you correctly calculated that. As much as you would love that kind of thing to work, not really happening. So one of the things we should do next whenever we're solving a puzzle is after we've calculated, let's say, the power moves of chess, the checks, the captures, the potential power moves, tempo moves, attacking a more valuable piece, whatever that is, right? Making an obvious threat. Then the next thing we have to do, if none of those things exist, and we already kind of knew this was a tougher problem because I prefaced it with that, you have to decide what's your goal in the position. So if you were giving Black like a general description of what his plan should be here, and not moves, like what would that be to you? How would you say what would you say Black's goals should be in a position like this?
Okay, so first of all, Black has a lead in development. This is a strength. White does have doubled pawns, and they have this backward C pawn, which I think is a long-term weakness. I'd like to keep this a weakness, and I think my key plans are getting play on the queen side, in particular, try to exploit the C pawns.
Okay, that's a pretty good breakdown. Even if it's not just the C pawns, but certainly whenever you have double pawns, that often means you might also have some squares available. Of course, the development lead is there, but unfortunately, if we don't see a way to concretely open the center quickly, probably that's not going to be a major feature of Black's advantage here, because White is really only a move away from getting castled.
Yeah. Also, their bishop is it's almost like non-existent right now.
Especially if the structure remains the same.
Yeah.
Right? If this structure doesn't change, like White doesn't find some way to open up the position, then yes, again, that's another great advantage. So it would be fair to say Black's goal should be to do what you said, and in general, you're sort of trying to keep the position closed because you have the knights versus his bishops, right? So this is very advanced, but the reason I'm telling this story here is because one of the ways that we can improve our critical thinking process is by always having that sort of very logical, we ask ourselves questions at all times. Like we try to develop that muscle as if we had a little bird like Danny talking to us on our shoulder, even when it's not there in a real tournament, where you can be like, all right, what's my goals here? What do my pieces want? What's my, if you have a knight versus a bishop, you kind of know what you want. You want squares and closed positions. If you have the bishop pair, you're looking to open the center or expand in the center and get the bishops active on diagonal. So these are, like, if you ask yourself the right questions, hopefully the answers can present themselves to you. Now, if you don't have the right strategical goal in mind, it's very hard to expect yourself to calculate all the tactics accurately. Tactics serve the right strategical mindset. So the one move that you dismissed very quickly, and you almost didn't, is the move that is really the one that concretely gets you to the goal that we talked about.
What, B5?
B5. And so the idea here is that it would be very difficult. you and I have talked about this before. Like, you only make a tactical idea work if you believe in its ideals and its merits, right? Like, if we're looking at a move that seems like a queen sack, unless we think we're what's the only thing probably better than a queen is probably checkmate itself, right? So if you don't believe you're going to checkmate, you don't sit there and try to justify a queen sack to yourself.
Right.
If you don't believe you're going to achieve X, you don't sit there and try to force yourself to justify Y. The point is, in this position, once you truly believe in X, which in this case would be control over the light squares and dominance over this bad bishop, then you push yourself a little harder to justify the Y of getting there, right? So let's look at b5 and see what I'm talking about. So the first thing we notice tactically is kind of the thing that I thought maybe might change your mind, which is, okay, he has to take the pawn, otherwise you're just winning. I mean, okay, you're just winning a pawn straight up,
Right.
which is awesome, and just dominant, right? Much bigger advantage for black. So they have to take it. And then if you calculate quickly, you should see that they also have to take with the queen. They can't take with the bishop. Forced, right? So they take with the queen. Now you can continue to look at tempo moves in a line like that.
Rook b8.
There you go. Yeah, you've already got it solved. Right. So rook f8 is necessary, and it's a good one. His only move is queen to d3.
Yeah, queen d3. Yeah.
And now we can follow through with the plan we talked about with this move knight a5, which is preparing to both enter on b3 but also on c4. And in this game, black achieves a huge advantage precisely with this plan because there's nothing white can do from preventing black from just creating an absolute dominant bind on the light squares. This was a really advanced puzzle. The more I talk about it, the more I'm realizing it. And so I apologize for starting the show at this level.
No. This is fair because this is the sort of stuff I got to get better at. I mean, I want to be able to see these things, and especially to be able to recognize positional type tactics, because this is really what this feels like.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's a positional tactic. In fact, if anything, you're down a pawn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not. I mean, obviously, the more now when we start to look at the position, let's say that white does get castled. Oh, it's funny because I set up this position from scratch. It's actually not letting me castle, so I'll do it manually. There we go. So let's say white gets castled. If we give black more moves here, it becomes clear that it's really hard to play white here. In fact, I think probably the move that I would play to give my pieces even more access, I would at least start considering a move like c5, if not right away, because if I can get c5 for black, and then maybe bring this other knight in, I'm going to soon start operating with both my knights really just kind of just binding down the whole area of the board. I don't know if that's necessarily the best move. Perhaps but something more straightforward is.
Yeah, I was thinking knight c4.
Yeah, I don't think that you would want to go for a position where you're trading off the knight for the bishop.
I mean,
although
the bishop's awful. There's no reason to do that.
It should be noted that probably something like this is also super strong though for black. Because like we're coming with c4, if they take it, probably white is still under a lot of pressure here. Something like the other knight coming in, that the pawn is going to fall. My knight holds this square, so your queen has to back up. It's just getting harder and harder to play the white pieces here. Again, this is a position that is going to require technique from here on out. So this was a really advanced puzzle to start with. I guess what I wanted to set the tone of, because some of the other positions I've prepared are simpler. Okay, so take heart. Okay, it's not going to be this hard all day.
Okay, well, if it is this hard, it's okay.
But I know you love the struggle, but I think, I don't know, some of our fans might be like, geez, Danny, come on, what are you doing here? I think, and by the way, anyone who's here can actually come in and follow this game live on chess.com. You can come in fact, right as I said that, it's like a whole bunch of people figured out. But if you actually just click this link I gave you in chess.com TV, I think I can give the same link in Twitch. You can actually come in and join the analysis board that John and I are doing this on. Only John and I have the ability to move pieces, but if you want to come watch it live, go ahead and do that. And now the observer list is filling up. Hopefully it doesn't cause any sort of bugs and that doesn't backfire. But okay, so the theme of take the bigger picture into account and then let the tactics kind of justify the means to the end, right? But establish where you want to go, establish what your goals are in a position, and then calculate to sort of justify your theory, your ideals about what you would like to do, and see if I think sometimes people get caught up immediately, and that works if there's obvious tempo moves or some sort of obvious checkmate in two. But if it doesn't, and there may be something about the position you needed to appreciate before you could accurately justify a sacrifice like this pawn, then that's what you should be doing in general in your chess. And the muscles we want to build as chess players are that we don't just get lucky when a tactic presents itself, but we make the tactics work because we have the right strategic goals in mind. So that was kind of a theme I wanted to impart on you today, John. I'm sorry I chose a really, kind of tough position to do that, but we're going to continue along this line.
No, that was a good one. That was like a really, really good one. So I appreciate
Okay, awesome.
it.
So here comes our next one.
All right.
And I'm going to go ahead and paste the position right now. Okay. This position is also black to play, so make sure you are still looking at it from black to move, everybody. It is a very, very straightforward question I'm going to bring to you, which is, with black to play, should you trade rooks or should you not trade rooks?
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes as soon as I start the timer. Ready, set, go.
Okay. All right, I'm just calculating the pawn ending. Rook takes f4, king takes f4. And now, let's see. Okay, so the first thing I'm looking at is to see if I can exploit my a pawn taking on a3, but this is far, far too slow because rook f4, king f4, king c6, king f5, and this e-pawn's falling far too quickly. So that means I need to do some defensive maneuvers. Let's see. Rook takes f4, king takes f4. Is e6 okay? Let's see. e6. King g5, perhaps? King g5. And now they're still getting there quickly, so king e7. Now are they outflanking me? They are outflanking me, aren't they? Yeah, so e6, king g5. I gotta try to put up some resistance. King e7, perhaps, or yeah, king e7. Now king g6. Well, they do have king g6. They've gone to the wing of the pawn, and without calculating too much further, this certainly isn't a good thing. And a real question is, okay, what am I trying to play for in this position? Because rook takes f4, I'm certainly not winning. But a good option I have here is if I try to keep the rooks on the board, what can I do? First thing that jumps out at me is if I keep the rooks on the board, rook d1, and now I'm threatening to take their a pawn. So rook d1, they can even play, let's see. I actually don't care where they move their rook. Rook d1, they can move their rook wherever, they can move their king wherever. Rook a1. And now I'm making threats on their a pawn. And regardless whether this is winning or not, I'm certainly in a better position.
Okay.
Than in the pawn ending. And how's my time?
It's good timing because the time just ran out.
All right, rook d1. That's my move.
Good timing. All right, so
rook d1 with the idea of to follow up with rook a1.
Okay, very good. So you made your guess. By the way, that's going to be part of the goal. Is right when the 3 minutes ends, John will make his guess official.
Yeah, I'm not actually looking at the clock because I'm just looking at the board and our group. So you just tell me when time's almost done.
Yep, and And so your commitment of staying in the rook ending was based on two things, based on what I was hearing from your thought process. One, you weren't happy with what was coming from your calculations of the king and pawn
Yeah,
ending,
their king has too
right?
much activity. I mean, like, I have no sense of counterplay. Trying to get the a3 pawn and promote just fails because their e pawn will queen faster.
Right,
And if I try to just hold, the problem I felt was that their king is getting in very quickly.
right. So the very funny. So Jay Prathangara in the chat says Danny just broke his record for the longest time he's ever gone without talking. That's actually pretty funny. And that might have been a record of mine. Obviously, that's not true, but that's funny. So anyway, no, the show. This is amateur hour, so this isn't just about Dan here. This is really John's show, and I'm just here shepherding. So first of all, great job. Okay, you did a very good job, and one of the things that I think it's difficult for you to immediately take that stance because I gave you a puzzle to solve, and so it's your job to calculate. I mean, it's a position you haven't seen before. You can't just dismiss trading rooks. But one of the things I wanted to talk about with this position is probably one of the most common mistakes made, 2,000 level and under, is when players trade from a drawn endgame into a lost endgame. And often
Right.
they do it, often it is done from rook endings into king and pawn endings. Part of the reason for that is because players get overwhelmed by the amount of calculate. You'd have to calculate so much to see a king and pawn ending to the end, and often it's overwhelming and players don't have principles to kind of guide them, and so they kind of like figure it's worth the roll of the dice, or sometimes people have the psychological thought that if they're worse, less pieces on the board means an easier chance to draw, when often the opposite is true. And so you have to calculate the trade into the king upon ending, and that was the question I posed for you. But overall, the principles that I think more people should have than not is your first instinct should not be to trade in the king upon ending unless you're the one who's better. Like, unless you just know you're better, you should just not trade into a king upon ending. And you should appreciate the truth, which is that most king upon endings are decisive. So if someone thinks
Yes.
they're trading into a king upon ending and holding drawing chances, they should remember that pretty good chance that's not true. Even if you can't see the win to the end, the win is probably there. A lot of king and pawn endings are decisive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and if we calculate this, before we even get to move you did, I mean, after takes and takes, it actually becomes pretty clear that that white actually has the biggest and only critical advantage. There's no material advantages here, so let's start backwards to forwards. Material advantage number one, and a king upon ending, the second thing might be the first person with a passer, whether it's an outside pass
Right.
pawn or a protected pass pawn. That's a
But
big
white has
advantage
king
usually.
activity here. And this
Right, so
is
the third thing is king activity. If you were ranking the pyramid of valuable advantages in king and pawn endings, it's if you're up a pawn, okay, usually you're winning. Number two would be you're the first person with a pass pawn, and I would kind of put the value of pass pawns in that role. Do you have an outside passer? Do you have the protected pass pawn? Do you have some sort of pass pawn advantage? And the third thing is king activity. So here, there's no way you could evaluate yourself as being better in this endgame, and the more we calculate, it seems that black is actually easily lost. Right? If you push the pawn, they're going to come around, and
Yeah.
you know you can't hold this endgame because they have your regular opposition.
Yep.
No matter how many moves you waste, they can move their pawn or whatever, but eventually you're going to start to get pushed back. And that's just something you learn very quickly in king and pawn endings. The second thing is that you can't hold this way even if you play a6. This was the mistake I thought maybe, the potential trap to go for, but the truth is, even if you get the right to move, if white has to move first, you still have to be the one who moves back at some point.
Yeah, they've got a nice little wall built with the pawns on c4 and a4.
Right, and
Black
so
has
it's
no activity in that position.
right.
And there's like no chance to win. I mean, the thing that I try to do, and maybe this is right, maybe this is wrong, when I'm looking at a position or even like an endgame position where I'm making decisions like that, I ask myself, okay, what am I playing for? And what gives me the easiest chance to get to what I'm playing for?
Right. That's a phenomenal thought process. I mean, seriously, I told you. So you should really give up your goal in math and just become a chess commentator. we got a job for you right here. So, yeah, no, I mean exactly. So, and the only caveat I'll add to that is sometimes like deciding whether you're better or worse, I'm playing for a win or a draw, can be irrelevant in terms of what the best move is. And I only
Right.
say that in the sense that, like, sometimes players get obsessed with deciding that they're winning because a lot of people just feel like they play better when they think they're winning. So
Mhm.
they always think they're better, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes there are people that are natural masochists out there and they just always think that they're losing, and so that also jades their perspective. And
Right.
so one of the things as you get better to try to train yourself to do is to calculate the features in that way, meaning calculate the essence of the position, like,
Hmm.
like we did in the last one. Like, what am I playing for? I have the knights, they have the bishops. I have this, they have that.
Hmm.
My weaknesses are this, their weaknesses are that. So do that with the actual essence of the position,
Hmm.
but you can make the best move based on your knowledge of that without even really deciding, am I better or worse here? I
Right.
mean, sometimes that can be something that gets in your way. But anyway, so you came to the right conclusion about the transition, and then
Hmm.
you came to the right conclusion about the best move. This is absolutely Black's best move here.
Yeah.
In fact, the threat of Rook A3 uh, makes this a critical position for White. White has to really find the right moves here.
Hmm.
And in fact, I think that even with best play, White is in trouble. So, how does White guard the A3 pawn is a question for everybody. If the rook comes to f3 with the intention of meeting a move like this with king e4, well, that's possible. But even at the end of a line like that, there's moves like king e6, and there's some difficult threats to deal with. But
Hmm.
even better, if the rook comes to f3, is probably a move like king e6 immediately, attacking this pawn. Because if white tries to defend it now, we can give check, and this pawn falls anyway.
Right.
Um, it's actually very difficult. If the king comes to e4, black is probably meeting it. Okay, you can play tickle if you want. Every Russian schoolboy repeats when he can. But really, even better than that is just bring the king to e6,
Hmm.
and we've got the same threats where white is overloaded. Can white defend this endgame with best play and get a draw? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I will say that the roles are clearly reversed. Black is in the driver's seat, and so you're 1-1. You got one right, one wrong, right?
Hmm.
That's pretty good.
All right. I'm ready. Let's
You
do
feeling good for
round
the
three.
next one? You
Hmm.
ready?
Hmm.
Okay. I'm excited for this next one. A little bit of a change of tempo. Little bit of a change of tempo. Again, black to move. I'm not exactly sure why I've prepared so many black to move positions, but here we go. We have, again, it is black to play. What I'm going to say is this position is one of those ones where, really there's no excuse. Sometimes chess is, we always like it when we can be comfortable. Oh, I know this one is just pure calculation, so I know I'm looking for mating attacks. Or sometimes this is an easy win as long as I stick to the positional plan. This is a position that just requires a lot of calculation. There's nothing but hard work is going to make you find the right solution here. It's black to play. That doesn't mean it's necessarily really difficult, but you gotta work hard at the board. Ready, set, go.
All right. Okay. First thing I'm going to look at is features of the position. Bishop on A4 is hanging. Pawn on B2 is barely defended. Rook on A1 undefended. There's pressure on the A6 F1 diagonal. There's also pressure from the bishop on D6 to the king on H2. Okay, so that tells me the main two features of this position that I see is this diagonal pressure. So the first thing I'm going to look at, let's see, I'm going to look at my first candidate's E takes D3. So E takes D3. If queen moves to say E1, I think pawn takes C2 is just winning. Therefore, I think that forces them to go C takes D3. Okay, C takes D3. And now do I have an extra threat to try to win this pawn? So now might be a good time to think about, okay, E takes D3, C takes D3, Queen D4, now exploiting the undefended bishop on A4. But the problem with that is bishop C2 there seems fine. Let me make sure my calculation is okay there. C takes one takes bishop. Okay, so now let's just look at the moves in different order. Let's start with queen d4. Queen d4. Yeah, this could be the ticket. Queen d4, bishop b. Oh, hold on. Queen d4. They have check with bishop b3, so that's no good. Queen d4, bishop b3. King h8. Now pawn takes. No, still pawn takes. No, wait, sorry. Queen d4, bishop b3, king h8. Now they have an extra tempo to do something useful, perhaps.
Like so time's out. I'm going to give you
out?
About
Okay.
Give yourself about 15-20 seconds to kind of maybe organize your final thought process and then make your move on the board.
Okay. My final move on the board is going to be something I didn't even calculate, but this is something I wanted to get to.
Okay. You know what's hilarious about that?
What?
It's the right move. And I know you didn't calculate it because I was listening to you the whole time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I didn't calculate it yet, but I was getting to this because the main thing I'm looking at is this diagonal pressure. And the problem here is they can't capture the e4 pawn with either pawn because they have serious.
Why can't they go this way?
Because discover check.
Okay, and they obviously can't go this way because...
Well, they just lose their queen.
Right. I'm just trying to help it for all the fans at home. Right.
So,
okay.
I mean, note that everyone in the chat, please be patient with me because Danny, you don't know this too much. Hess really knows this. I'm like a slow, methodical calculator.
Oh, I do know this. I mean, we've done hours of shows together by this point with the other. I mean, there's a reason why you won the vote chess match versus the world. Did something that I couldn't do. So you're obviously.
Well, we did it together. It was a
That's
group
right. But when you have your time, you like to take it, and I think that this exercise actually might even be. It was sort of something we chose randomly because we thought this would really be kind of a fun, cool format, right? But I think this might be the kind of thing that could be good for you.
No.
Did you ever read my article on the 15-minute drill?
No, I haven't. What's that?
I'm gonna share that with you. Maybe I can find that in the chat. When you're thinking about the next position, I'll share with members in the chat. The 15-minute drill is actually a drill, a legendary drill from the one and only Mark Dvoretsky. Okay, obviously you know who that is, but it's a drill that he was famous for doing with his students where the deal is you have 15 minutes to solve 5 positions. But for every position you get wrong, you lose 5 minutes. So you have 15 minutes total on the game clock. Like the total, your total time is 15 minutes. You have to solve the 5 positions that he's prepared in that time. But to punish yourself and to keep yourself honest, so that, I mean, because if you think about it, you could miss 4 quickly and then have 14 minutes for just one puzzle, and you're like, oh, I'm going to win, right? So if you get a puzzle wrong, you lose 5 minutes. So if you do the math, which I know you do math a lot, so if you do the math, you know that you have to get at least 3 of the 5 right. The max you could miss in that system would be 2 out of 5. And if you did miss 2 out of 5, you would obviously need to be solving the others at a pretty decent pace. But this was something when I was training with Dvoretsky in Moscow for a summer. We must have done this 15-minute drill like a dozen times.
Oh, you trained with him? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I trained with Mark when I was 15 in Moscow. The summer of 2002. I remember it like it was yesterday. Actually, it was a summer of love. No, really, it was the summer of 2002. I was training with Dvoretsky in Moscow, and but that 15-minute drill is something that I sort of adopted and made my own, and I actually created a huge database of positions, which is what I'm pulling on here for you. And I have everything from physical paper notes, some of them that I'm pulling from, to a database. But it was and Dvoretsky had this legendary card catalog, which was real, which was like massive file cabinets of little cards that he had hand drawn on positions. The guy was as OCD as all giddy up. Okay, the guy was OCD, and he reveled in this, and he would Anyway, so the point is the 15-minute drill. It's a phenomenal exercise. I used it for years in myself. It's a very good sort of pre-tournament training tool because it balances all the critical muscles, which is time management. You recognize the situation you're in. Sometimes you recognize very quickly that you could spend 10 more minutes on this puzzle and may not have a chance to even get it right. So probably your best bet is to make a practical guess. And the game is this: as long as you get, it's what we're doing here essentially. As long as you guess the correct move on the board, then you got it right, even if you don't have the follow up.
Gotcha.
So the positions are such that the follow-up is critical, but because it's a game, it's a fun game he invented. As long as you guess the correct move, you get it right. So in this case, even though you didn't necessarily, you weren't on this path while you were calculating, you get full credit for this puzzle. So essentially what this puzzle's teaching is patience. What you did was you calculated all of the forcing moves, right? You even considered, I think you considered pushing the pawn at some point. Maybe, I don't remember. But you considered taking. You started to consider queen to d4. You weren't unhappy necessarily with some of the tactics, but you started to recognize that really none of them are really delivering anything concrete, and they all allow to a certain degree some sort of level of counterplay. And then suddenly, at the very last moment, it pops in our head like, well, probably the best thing about this position is that white really has no moves, and rook e8 suddenly looks really attractive, right? You put the rook on e8, and you're like, now what? Now this move is a serious threat that white has a very hard time dealing with. And black is just winning. Literally, the position is winning on rook e8, and that's the most powerful move.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, I didn't calculate it all the way through, but I looked at all the things that I thought were more forcing, didn't really see any of them making their way through. And this was an idea I wanted to get to, but didn't have time.
Okay. Well, you got to it as far as the rules of this exercise goes. And we're kind of doing a 15-minute drill here if you consider that I'm giving you about 3 minutes per puzzle, which is what you should average in the other drill, right? If you got everything right. So yeah, it's kind of fun. So I'm gonna find the link to that article for you and the other fans. But in the meantime, you are going to get started on your next position.
Oh, also, while I'm working on this position, you can tell the fans about. Are we ready to talk about the match?
I mean, yes. No, we are actually. In fact, we just did you confirm the date? Was that good for you?
I gotta look at the date, so we will confirm the date right after.
Okay. Well, there is going to be we're going to do our first ever okay, we'll do the position. We'll talk about it. But all right, here we go.
I'm going to do some thinking.
All right, you're going to do some thinking. I'm going to paste the position right now. Okay.
Gotcha.
This position is black to play. For context, black's move was e4, and white played the move queen to b3. Okay. You have 3 minutes. Ready, set, go.
Go. Okay. Okay, so this tactic is obviously let's try to deal with their threat tactic, because naturally just bishop f7 is bishop f7 leads to mate in 2. So how do I stop mate here? Can I stop mate in a way that their knight is still hanging? Can I stop mate while making threats? This is my first idea. This is my first goal. Okay. So first move I'm going to think about is just block, knight d5. Knight d5. Knight takes d5, perhaps. And now this is taking some calculation. Okay, knight d5, knight takes d5. I was thinking about taking the knight on f3, but what about knight c7? looks kind of real. Looks kind of really real. Okay, I got 3 minutes. Quickly. Okay. Putting that one in the banks. Queen e7 is the other idea. I'm defending f7. Now they're forced to move their knight. If they just castle, just pawn takes, and I think I'm surviving after taking on f3. They don't have rook d1 yet, though. That's something I got to worry about. This is something I really got to worry about, though. Okay, so queen e7, castles, pawn takes f3, bishop d2, and this is not looking the merriest, is it?
Okay, so you're in a tough spot. Your time is up.
Time's up. Okay.
Listening to your calculation, obviously this is sort of a tough position. You're on your heels because of this last move by white, trying to figure out your best resources.
All right, I'm going with the first thing I calculated, knight d5.
Look at you and your instincts. Your instincts are adorable.
Queen e7
I love your instincts. Okay, so let's see how well you calculated though. So, knight to d5.
Yeah.
If white plays knight takes d5, what's the key response?
Knight takes d5 was the key continuation that I really had to think about. And I was really thinking about pawn takes f3.
Right. And this is the correct move, and this is the key thing that makes it work for black. The main reason, everybody, is so black is in this sort of pickle where, he made a tempo move. Often when we make tempo moves, right, we think our opponent responds. So we made a forcing move, but rather than respond by, putting this knight to safety or something, white responds with
I still have a question, because
go ahead.
One thing that I didn't here, I'm going to move this. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Thing that I still didn't, figure out. So takes. What I didn't figure out was this move.
So the thing is that now you don't have to play. You have to visualize the freeing of the square. You don't have to play king e7. The key is that if he went for this, you're playing king to d8.
Now queen e6.
If bishop g5, you have bishop e7, and then on the trade at the end of that line, you're not mated anymore because the rook guards it.
Right, of course.
And if he plays queen e6 immediately, okay, obviously it's not with check, so now you can block it.
Yeah.
So it's very risky. The thing I love about this position is it's similar to the theme of the day, which is your knowledge of the strategical factors, the strategic essence of the position, John, is going to make you calculate the tactics more accurately, right?
Yeah.
And note that I actually think, and this is what I already kind of knew about you as a player, I feel like from a knowledge perspective and from this sort of very, the patient disciplines that a chess player needs to have, probably it's your math background, you do a very good job, I think, of gathering kind of the information, right? Part of making a decision is we have to gather all the knowledge available to us and then make the best guess, because sometimes we can't calculate. And as you've shown, you can guess right if you have the right information, right? You've guessed right twice, basically.
I guessed right, but I still didn't figure. The one thing that was holding me back from knight d5 was that knight c7 move, and I didn't calculate that all the way through.
Well, you didn't calculate it all the way, but because we're doing the Dvoretsky approach, the 15-minute drill method today, I'm still going to give you credit, and that's not just because we're on TV. I'm telling you that because I told the same thing to Dvoretsky if I felt like insecure about it, and his point and his answer in that was that chess is a game. It's not a science, right? And you're right. You can't calculate everything all the time. Part of this exercise is meant to be difficult where, okay, put it this way. If you did 10 more of these where you kept guessing the right first move and didn't calculate the end, like in the end, that's enough to win a chess game, right? It doesn't, if you think about it in the end, the goal is to win, not necessarily to be a scientist. So the goal is to win.
Yeah.
And that's what this exercise does. Now, I'm kind of bouncing around because I want to make a number of instruction points, so I'm sorry for my thought process. I get excited when I'm teaching, okay? I get a little excited. But so here's what I want to summarize. So your strategical, I keep saying strategical. I know that's not technically a word, but by the way, it is technically a word. So stop making fun of me. It actually is in the dictionary now. Your knowledge of the strategic factors, okay, in the position will always make you a better calculator because you have a goal, you have an end game, to use a chess pun, right? You have a place you're trying to drive the car. And so people need to always remember that. And they often skip by this sort of gather the essence steps and then wonder why they made the wrong decision when they got behind the wheel of the car. You got to know where you're going, okay? Right. So you're doing a great job with that, and I just want to impart that on you. That's why you're scoring well. Now, then you start calculating, and in that 3 minutes, as you're seeing, like darn, you can't quite calculate enough. But in the end, you're like, all right, well, I know I can't do this. I get mated, right? Bishop takes f7, queen e6. Yeah. I don't fully see, all the repercussions of knight d5, and I'm worried about it. But you kind of didn't see any better option, and you really didn't like queen e7 because it's an old lady who swallowed the fly. There was a queen who blocked the bishop, who blocked the rook, that kept the king in the center. That little song. There was an old lady who swallowed the fly. It just becomes one bad thing after another if you play queen e7. Okay? And that's the compensation that white would hope to get for the pawn that he's down. So knight d5 is the right approach. If white recaptures the pawn with the knight or move this knight to safety, black now has time to defend his knight in the center. No more tactics. Everybody's equal. In fact, white has this isolated pawn, so black is strategically on the level with white heading to the middle game. So the critical thing to note was that line we talked about: knight takes. You did guess for this where you miscalculate, and this is just a testament that you should always work on your visualization until you feel like you're calculating like Kasparov. We all have something to aspire to. But you want to get to the level where you don't miss things like at the end of this line, you didn't have to play king e7, right? Or you don't miss the fact that, oh, wait, no, but even that doesn't work because then they get the same mate of takes and queen e6, and then you forget that, oh, wait, no, it's not mate because my rook was opened up, right? Those are things that are easy to see now, but if I ask you to see that back here, it's a little bit trickier, right? Yeah. And that's the goal we should always be aspiring to. That's why people should use our vision trainer, even though they always think it's hocus pocus. Your ability to know how the position is changing when it's not in front of you will help you make better decisions. So you always have to push your calculation. Okay, how we doing? You enjoying this?
Yeah, no, I'm loving it. This is great. I want to learn. I want to,
All right, well, so you're doing great. I've got one more for you for today.
Okay.
All right. So the last one is white to move. My first
Hold
one.
Let me flip the board.
Okay. Let me go back to ChessBase and grab the last one I just prepared from the old 15-minute drill database. I shared a screenshot of the database with the fans at Chess TV because I wanted to show them that I wasn't making up that story.
You're looking for this, I'll tell the fans.
Go for it.
So you guys know who Hutch is, right? Like, Danny, you've done some stuff with Hutch, right?
Yep.
Hutch and I, we're going to play each other, and I think we're going to play it like Blitz battle style.
Yep.
Except we're amateurs and we're not good at chess. And
which might make it even better, right?
Which might make it like hilarious for you guys. I don't know. And we're going to duke it out. And I think chess.com, maybe I'm not going to put Danny on the spot for this, but I think they might put up a little bit of something for charity.
That's right. We are.
It could be very fun to just come hang out. It will be colorful, and we'll see, hopefully you guys can watch Hutch get whooped. That's the hope. But
that's right. Well,
I've heard the date, a lot of like GMs and IMs, so maybe I need to, get my ducks in a row.
He has been trained by a lot of GMs and IMs, but I don't know. I feel like Sean or Hutch he's a better talker than he is a listener, like yours truly. So, no, but anyway, all jokes aside, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're putting up $1,000 for charity. It's going to be $750 to the winner, $250 to the loser's charity. These two guys are going to pick a charity. Probably John's will have something to do with helping kids get better at math, solving global problems. But no, so the date is still TBA. We don't even need to announce that today, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be our first ever amateur death match. Sean, I keep calling him Sean because, anyway, but he's in my phone as Sean Hutchinson, and we were texting last night. But so Hutch is going to be, I think, streaming his own. I'm also going to do a stream on chess.com TV, perhaps with a host. Maybe our boy Robert Hess will join us. But I only worry about putting Robert behind the mic when you're playing because I feel like he might get a little too emotional if it starts not going your way, and I'm worried about putting Robert in that position.
That's okay. I mean, let the audience see how
How frustrated he gets with you?
how he treats.
Right.
Let them see how he actually treats me.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that
know.
that would be an invite into. Anyway, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Everyone, wait! It's going to be our first ever amateur blitz death match, as we used to do those for years, or an amateur speed chess battle. And if it goes well, maybe we'll do more, and maybe the winner between John and Hutch will take on somebody else. But that's going to be fun. The date will come out soon. So, all right, last position, John. This is your
Okay.
chance. This is your chance for I don't know. This is your
Glory.
Eminem moment.
Chance at
You got to
glory.
own it. Okay. All right, so white to play. You know the drill. Ready, set, go.
Okay. Ready, set, go. First thing, my knight on a7 is undefended. Bishop on a3 is undefended. Uh, their bishop on b7 is undefended. This pawn on e7 is pinned. Let's see. So my knight is really trapped on a7, and is this concerning? This is very possibly concerning. Let's see. Uh, how many moves does Black need to really take advantage of this knight? Yeah, that's something I would be concerned about. Okay. Is there any? Okay, let's see. First, I'm going to calculate what could be some very stupid lines. So let's see. Bishop takes a6. No, is this trash? Bishop takes, knight. Let's say bishop takes, queen takes a6, knight takes a6, rook c8. No, that's no good. Yeah, that's no good. How do I get this knight out? Is the name of the game. How do I get this knight out? Right now, I see nothing. So far, so nothing. Okay. Queen c2. Does this do anything? Queen c2. Okay, calculate. Queen c2. What's their best response? Queen c2, maybe. No, I think knight e2 is no good. Sorry, queen c2, knight d7, then just queen c7, and now they got to deal with the bishop and the queen, and now my knight gets out. But I need to come up with a good response for them for queen c2.
But unfortunately, time's up.
Okay,
So
well, queen c2 because
for
it's the only move I actually.
John Urschel, you passed the 15-minute drill, which is I mean it sounds like such a football term that I feel like it was appropriate. It wasn't even my plan today. I just put you through the 15-minute drill, and you did it. I mean, you got 4 out of the 5 puzzles right today.
Yes.
And the first one I gave you was bananas hard.
I like it.
Okay,
One thing I
so
had trouble with here is, I mean, if I had more time, I'd be able to think through more of Black's responses. But I actually
well,
had a hard time coming up with a good move for Black to really try to exploit this knight.
the interesting thing about so first of all, Robert knew this game, which was awesome. It's a famous game.
Wait,
Yasser
what game?
Seirawan. This is a game from a Seirawan victory at a U.S. championship, U.S. chess championship long ago, back when Yasser played chess. Um, So,
Dude, Yasser's the man. Yasser is like my guy. That's
yeah,
someone like I
everyone
want
loves Yasser.
to.
Yasser's awesome. But so the interesting thing about this position is that the immediate focus that you took is very similar to what a lot of people take. Like you notice, okay, what's going on here? I got a knight on a7, right? Uh-oh, right? And then you got this bishop here, and at first you notice it was undefended. That was good, but what we fail to realize until we come up with this move Queen C2 is that actually it turns the knight into an incredibly well placed piece. The effectiveness of threats like the knight
Right,
coming to c8 in some positions, like preventing them from blocking the c file, combined
right.
with the pressure the bishop exerts on this diagonal, actually. So what's funny about this position is at first you're playing queen c2 almost out of not necessarily
Defensive, yeah.
desperation, but defensive mindedness, right?
And
You're
then
trying to
yeah,
get the knight out,
I started to try to think of like Black's good responses to this.
right?
And
And
I
then
started
suddenly
to
you
realize
realize that,
I started
yeah,
having trouble coming up with good moves for Black.
right, and that black is actually just busted here.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure in the game it went rook e8, queen. I don't even have it in front of me, but I could go get the chess. But
Queen
it went queen
C7.
c7, and then after bishop a8, the move is knight to c8, and it's like boom, black's busted. It's over.
Oh, that is that is pretty.
Black's best is to trade queens because there's a double attack on all these things. He
Right.
has to prevent the knight from losing, but now
Yeah.
there's no
Queen
real way
takes
to deal with
trade.
this pawn, likely to follow this pawn.
Right.
So
And Black's
suddenly White's
position
pieces
is
are
just very
incredibly well
bad.
coordinated.
Yeah, the bishop on a8 is awful. Yeah.
So the execution of your biggest advantage
Yeah.
on the board, which happens to be the open C file,
Mhm.
ends up being something that really changes the way you think about a position with this knight being sort of way out of play. And what's funny is if you know that White kind of voluntarily went for this idea in anticipation that he would be the one getting control over the critical only open file, not Black. And
Mhm.
and so one of the lessons there is, controlling the only access points. In every game, there become access points. Games that are really open and dynamic, you have multiple people with tons of diagonals, right? And this is crazy, right? So you have more romantic style chess, open center games, lots of access points. Often there, it's piece activity
Mhm.
and the initiative. But in positions where there's fewer access points, and there's only, in this case, really only one critical way for either side to kind of infiltrate the other position,
Mhm.
control over that access point becomes very often the most critical feature in the position, not necessarily one piece who maybe seems a little weird or something. Like you
Right.
find a way to execute on this only open file, and suddenly Black is in big trouble.
Right. So very much I came to this move Queen C2 for the wrong reasons.
But you did it.
But I did it, but
Hey man, the Dvoretsky, it's like you would say, you know what? A win's a win if it's ugly or not. The Baltimore Ravens have been playing ugly football for generations, and you know that, right? I mean, come on. So you guys
let's
know how
not
to
go that far.
you guys know how to win a game in the trenches,
That's
right?
true.
That's true. I
Yeah.
mean, let's just say you guys haven't been the greatest show on turf maybe ever, okay? You're not a high-flying offensive mechanism.
Don't
I
doubt
mean,
us.
I'm not trying to pick on your boy, but
Okay.
seriously, how's Flacco hanging in there?
Nah, he's good, man. We're ready to go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to say anything else about the Ravens that people would not get anywhere else? I mean, so who's like the biggest nerd on the team that's not you? And who's the guy that like thinks he's like so cool on the team? Tell
Gotcha.
everybody something about the Ravens.
So I love that you said that's not me, as if like I'm the biggest nerd on the team, but I'm just gonna let that go. Uh,
Right?
let's see. I'd say our long snapper is pretty nerdy. He's like
Yeah.
really he reads a lot. He's very kind of well versed
As you
as
are.
long snappers typically are.
Is that a thing? That sounds like a stereotype? Are long snappers typically well read?
Not necessarily well read, but I'd say as far as a football team goes, long snappers tend to be kind of above average with respect to kind of like nerdiness.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then who's the guy? Is it just always the rookies think they're above everybody, or is there somebody that's just been too cool for school for years?
Oh, the rookies haven't like earned. Oh, hold on.
Is that right? You getting a call on Skype or
Yeah,
somewhere?
yeah. Someone's trying to FaceTime me. Let me tell you, man, the rookies like when you get to the NFL, it's just like eyes wide open. Things are going a mile a minute. Like they don't know anything.
Right.
That's just how it goes. I don't think we really have that on our team. We got a lot of cool guys. We just got a couple cool dudes like Danny Woodhead. We just got love that guy. Like he gets along great with our team.
Cool.
So some good new additions.
Awesome. Don't let Flacco get sacked this year. I'm
I'll try
relying
my
on you.
best.
All right, guys. Well, anyway, this has been a ton of fun. The one and only John Urschel. You did well today, buddy. Honestly, you did. You did well. I don't feel like I gave you cupcakes. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess now I know. So that's the thing. I feel like I picked the first position a little bit too far out of the range of our drill. Maybe some. I'm gonna find the right sweet spot, and we're gonna do this again because I actually really enjoyed this format. And from what I'm seeing from the fans in the chat, people like this, and they're playing along, both in trying to guess the moves and
Also, note that I'm totally down for like if you want to amateur hour it together again, do some more puzzles. I'm always about it. So.
Well, everyone should stay tuned to the chess.com news department. We're announcing things all the time, but we'll get the official update on the dates and the format for Urschel versus Hutch and kind of what's going to go down there. Going to be a lot of fun. That'll probably be the next time we see you on Chess TV, but you will definitely be a regular guest. I'm hoping to maybe do this once a month as far as the amateur hour goes and get you on the show. So,
yeah, that'd be perfect. I'd be up for that.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, John. I think the fans this has been fun.
Yeah, no, it's been tons of fun. And no, I love all the chess.com people.
Go read some of those books, I guess. And, I don't know.
Most of these are Louisa's books, actually.
Like those are Louisa's books. For those of you who don't know, John's fiance, Louisa Thomas, actually writes for us. And she's awesome.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that? You guys, it's open that you're engaged, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's not really known because we keep our lives pretty private, but it's
private,
known enough.
Okay, all right, so that's good. So sorry about that. Anyway, but people love. I mean, Louisa's going to be a bigger star than both of us in the chess book pretty soon here. Her articles are blowing up. So I'll email you a link to the 15-minute drill. Everybody here in the chat, don't go anywhere in the next 30 seconds. I will post a link to that article I wrote on the 15-minute drill and maybe needs a little bit of a facelift and can add some updated positions. But fun stuff. John, thanks for being here. Everybody else, thanks for being here. And we are signing off.
All right. Sounds good.